Just checked. It's Wednesday already, May 14th of 2025. Rob Browne in Memphis, Brendan Martin, Ocala, Florida. All right, in the next 60 minutes, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We got Jason Caldwell, AU undercover, one of the best in the business, going to bat in the leadoff position. We'll quickly transfer over to Columbia, South Carolina to Wil Gunter, checking in on the Gamecocks and what's happening with the Fighting Beamers. After that, Dudley Dawson up in Fayetteville, hogville.net, and Vince Ferrara on the hill from the Sports Animal in Knoxville 99.1. Do us a favor, take a picture of the QR code. We're broadcasting on 7 platforms simultaneously at the same time, folks. X, Facebook, and YouTube. And we've got a channel that Brendan will tell you about. We're building and adding shows and content every day. It's really big, and it's your best place to go for SEC content and keeping up with what is happening. The Truth Brokers, we call it. Jason, good morning, and glad to see you. I'm going to head to Birmingham right after the show, go down and see Ronnie Sanders. I don't know if you're going to be up there. Hopefully you are, but a lot of coaches will be there, a lot of talk about football, and, man, a seismic shift because you chronicle this like I would say like Peter Lynch with the Magellan Fund, the way you chronicled Auburn's demise on the offensive line and now the comeback and how everything else around it is starting to come together, and a little bit of recruiting news and whatever else. But AU Undercover is the best site if you cover and watch Auburn, and we've got you on here.
Yeah, no, it's a good time. I actually won't be coming up to Regis. Nathan King will be up there. He'll be there today. I've got the final round of NCAA men's golf regional here at Auburn University Club today as Auburn teed off just a few minutes ago with an 18-shot lead. So I think they're in a pretty good position to qualify for the NCAA championships as they're looking to repeat. So got that going on. But yeah, have Nathan up there today and doing some football stuff. We'll have some more football stuff throughout this week as well, and a big recruiting weekend coming up. It's the first really official visit weekend of the year here in May. It's just a crazy time, but that's the way the calendar works now.
It is, and I saw that golf score. Auburn was 19 under yesterday. I thought that was AI. I mean, you get that way now. They're really, really good, trying to repeat as national champions. Recruiting wise, you've got a really good quarterback room with Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of chatter out there. What's the truth on Auburn and another 5-star quarterback recruit?
Yeah, obviously you got Ashton Daniels coming in as well, and there's talking lots of different things out there, but I think Travis Burgess is still the guy to watch, quarterback at Grayson. A guy that's continuing to kind of gain momentum in the recruiting world. Myself and Christian Clemente went over last week and watched him and Grayson practice, and it's a loaded roster. They got a bunch of guys on that team.
Insane.
And so that was fun. But Travis is a guy that continues to I think get better and improve as a quarterback. So I think that's still the guy that I would probably pay the most attention to for Auburn. As we get into the heart of this visit schedule for, I guess, the next 5 weeks or so, they could have as many as 70 official visitors on campus in the next 5 weeks before we ever get to the calendar of July. You're going to have a ton of official visits coming this weekend. I mean, this next month.
The AU Undercover did a great piece last week about the 10 position groups. Offensive line had 82 combined starts. The rest of the team had 88. And again, you go back as a benchmark, coming off the field against Oregon in 2011, national champions, and you had 176 combined starts among Lee Zimba, Mike Big Snacks Berry, Ryan Pugh. That was a strong-ass offensive line. This offensive line, you've got a couple of transfer tackles, Xavier Chapman and Mason Murphy. Talk about their impact and how you look at Auburn's offensive line compared to 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's not even the same. You can go back a long way. This is as as deep and experienced as an offensive line as Auburn's had since 2017 at least. This one probably has more upside talent than 2017, because I think Xavier Chaplin's a guy that is a guy that has draft potential. I think Mason Murphy's a guy with draft potential. Obviously, Connor Lew's a guy that is one of the top centers in the country coming back. And then look at the two guards. Jeremiah Wright's a guy, Dylan Wade settling in at guard. I think you have 5 guys that all have potential draft. And for Auburn, one guy is a step in the right direction as a draft guy. Having multiple guys drafted off an offensive line would be you mentioned seismic shift. That would be a seismic shift of what we've seen, because that has not happened in quite a while. Now you had Prince Tega, Monago Jr., but you had a couple of 6th and 7th round guys drafted. But this group has a chance to do some things. And Xavier Miller, Tall Miller, still there. That's a 2-year starter that's battling to be in one of those positions as well. And so, no, it's in a much different place than it was, and to say how different it is than when Hugh Freeze and Jake Thornton arrived is mind-blowingly different, because other than Jeremiah Wright, you got Tate Johnson, who's now a tight end for this team. You didn't have any legitimate SEC offensive linemen to speak of, and really no tackles. And so they've had to completely rebuild it. Still haven't seen the young guys that they've recruited step into those roles at tackle. Too Tall was a junior college product, and we've seen some transfers. But, the Tyler Johnsons of the world, and then the guys that they just recruited are guys that are ready and will be the next guys up for this group as well.
Yeah, and Xavier Miller out of Wooddale High School in Memphis, he's a good one. And then you look at is it Jalen Crawford, who's from Briarcrest, Hugh Freeze's old high school, went to Arkansas State. Now he's at Auburn. Then there's another walk-on from Eads out in Shelby County. So 3 local Memphis kids on that team, and 2 of them starting or contributing a lot. True or false? It takes a minimum of 2 years to fully develop an offensive lineman, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it probably takes longer than that. And you don't have that much time anymore. That's the part of it. I think you think back to fully developing a guy, and I think it's usually redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior before those guys. You go, okay, that's what that guy is. But you don't get that time anymore. Rarely do you get that much time anymore, because guys now they're playing earlier than they ever have because of the transfer world, and they're moving more than they ever have. And so I think it's made it a lot tougher in terms of development. So the key to it, though, is you continue to develop guys even if they're transfers, even if you get them in. So that's the thing. You look at a guy like Too Tall. Too Tall was an inexperienced junior college guy. So you work on developing that guy, and you look now and you go, he's 2 years in, and there's still a lot left on the table for him. I think the same thing for Xavier Chaplin, Mason Murphy. I think there's more left for those guys, even though they've played a lot of football. I think that's the nature of the position. It's the nature of most positions, but I think offensive line is probably the one spot, even maybe more so than quarterback now. I think quarterback in 1995, you probably were going, hey, man, you're going to be much different as an older guy. Now, because of the way the offenses have changed, you look and you go, yeah, you should make better decisions as you get older, but you're still going to be able to do some things in this offense now. On the offensive line, so much about it is experience and playing and being on the field, and I think that's a big deal.
Our producer, Brendan Martin, made a good point last week. He played tight end, and as he says, he wore 15 at Nice High School before Tebow did, so he retired Brendan's number. But he played tight end, and we were talking about everybody in the SEC, Auburn in particular, we're going to emphasize the tight end position. And Brendan made a good point. These edge rushers in the SEC just kind of erase them. They're so big and so aggressive and so athletic. You got guys that are like Keldrick Falk out of Highland Home, Alabama, 6'6", 285. When you stand next to him, he looks like he weighs about 210, 250. He's a lot like Owen Pappoe from Loganville Grayson High School. I can name you three. Coach Dye's second year, he had a lot of freshmen. Steve Wallace, Jeff Lott out of Gainesville, Georgia, Hall County High School, Randy Stokes out of Tallahassee, Alabama, Steve Wallace, Chamblee up in Atlanta. At the end of the year, they were starting. But other than that, you got Ed King out of Phoenix City Central, Willie Anderson out of Viger, Lee Zimba. It's hard as a tackle. Is that about right? That have started.
I think you look and people go like, "Oh, go get the 5-star offensive tackle and go plug them in." There's really only, you think about it, maybe 2 or 3 of those guys in the country every year. When you think about freshman wide receivers that can make an impact, and there's 40 of those guys. Now they may not all be Cam Coleman or whoever, Jeremiah Smith, but there's 40, 35, 40 freshmen where we go, those guys can go play probably. Well, offensive line, legitimate guys that are ready to step in and start at offensive tackle, 2 or 3 of those guys maybe. So you're going, it's a much smaller pool that you're trying to, or pond that you're trying to fish in for an immediate impact. That's why we get back to the word development. That's why you have to recruit more, develop more, and get those guys in a program.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about it. You go to medical school, undergrad 4 years, 4 years medical school, 4 years residency, or 5 if you and 6 if you do a fellowship before you are on your own. So you could be in your mid-30s. And we got guys now thinking at 18 and 19 they're ready to be the starter. You said something also a few months ago. There's 20 or 25 offensive linemen out there that you think are really special, that everybody in the country is going after. Were you referring to just within the SEC footprint or national?
That's national. Where that's what I'm talking about in terms of when you start talking about the legitimate guys, or guys got, we feel like this is a can't miss type of player. There's only a handful of those guys. That's why you recruit a bunch of offensive linemen. And that's why you have to recruit a bunch of everything. I mean, the NFL, you're talking about drafting. We just had the draft not too long ago. You go to the NFL, they spend millions of dollars and have, 75 to 100 scouts and GMs and coaches and all these people to make all these decisions. And they pick one player and they still get it wrong. Because it's such an inexact science, and recruiting rankings, or whatever you want to. People will dog on recruiting rankings, and they're pretty darn good considering that you're talking about 17-year-olds and having to project them down the line. Pretty darn good considering NFL teams miss all the time on first rounders and they have one guy to pick. That's all they got. They got one guy. There's a pool of about, they go, how many guys could be first round guys? You go probably 50, and they still miss it. And so because of that, especially offensive line, that's why you have to sign a bunch of them. And because, hey, the funny thing is, Georgia and Alabama have had a ton of offensive linemen drafted in the last few years. You know what else they've had? They had a bunch of guys that didn't work out. They're signed a bunch of them, and 2 or 3 will work out, and then 4 or 5 won't. That's how it works. That's why you can't sign 3 offensive linemen and go, well, we're going to be good now. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to sign a bunch because you're not going to hit on, at any position. You're just not going to hit on all of them. Yeah. But you better give yourself plenty of guys that have a chance to develop and see if you can get the right one.
And I think there's 2 things going on there. One is they were usually the biggest guy on their team, and maybe even in their league. And then all of a sudden, you put them all together, 5 or 6 of those guys. Some of them can't handle the competition. That's what it is. All right, Jason, I think the sport that, as great as you are on football and basketball and everything, covering Auburn, you are a baseball guy. You're a time traveler, man. You could have been the play-by-play guy at the Yankees. You know baseball. What Butch Thompson's doing right now, and we talked about it last night on the lowdown with Lauren Meadows about Florida as well. They started off just, dead man walking. Now they're roaring back. You look at Auburn as high as 2 or 3 in some of the polls. Got a 3-game series at Ole Miss this weekend. Philip Marshall 2 weeks ago said Auburn needed to steal 1 from Tennessee. They got 2 out of 3. Sweep South Carolina, mission accomplished, and still won on the road at Ole Miss. Talk about this baseball team, the Fighting Butch Thompsons.
I think it's all about what you're hoping to accomplish, and I think it's a step-by-step process in baseball. The first thing you want to accomplish, and it used to be the first thing you wanted to accomplish is get to Hoover. Okay, start by getting to the SEC tournament. Well, now everybody gets there. So the first step now is to do enough to get yourself in a position to be in the NCAA tournament. So that was done a few weeks ago. And so you started, okay, what's next? Put yourself in potentially a position to host. And now at 16 wins with a very high RPI, you feel like you put yourself in a great position to, at a minimum, host a regional at Plainsman Park. The next step is to try to get yourself in a position to be a top 8 national seed. That's where it gets more difficult. And it's in a normal year, you feel like 17 would, and an RPI that would be top 5 would probably be enough. But I don't know that that's quite enough this year because of everybody else in this league. You've added Texas and you've added everything in. And in the bottom of it too, with Missouri and South Carolina, combining for only 8 wins right now, and crazy, Missouri gets 3 of those last weekend against Texas A&M. It's added more wins to everybody else in the league. And so you look up and you go, Auburn's sitting here in a position where they could be 18-12 in this league and not be in the top 4. And that's a very real possibility. And 18-12 would be, other than 2010, Auburn went 20-10 and won the West that year. Other than 20-10, 18 wins. It's happened one time, and that is 2010, in 23 years at Auburn. You have not won more than 17 games, but once since 2003. And so, you put yourself in a position to do that, but the league's so good. When you think about Texas, Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, and you still got Auburn sitting there tied with Georgia and Vanderbilt in a spot. But I think one win, you feel pretty sure that you would host a regional at Plainsman Park. I think you probably have to win a series at Ole Miss this weekend to feel like you've solidified maybe a national seed. And that's kind of that process that you go through as you start kind of figuring out. But playing really well, played to get really well again last night against Jacksonville State. And can you carry that over to a tough place to play this weekend at Ole Miss? That's the question.
Yeah, and look, people, Mississippi State's looking for a coach. Butch Thompson. Butch has been at Auburn longer than he ever was at Mississippi State. And I just thought about this. His coach there, John Cohen, is his athletic director at Auburn. What more could he ask for? I mean, you know him, I know him. He seems happy. Jason, before you go and let people know how they can follow you, because again, you are just pounding out the content. We had one of your colleagues used to work with Jordan Davis Hill on yesterday, and he thinks the world of you. And, this is where the media is. And you go to X, and there's just real-time information. So tell us a story that you're going to be writing about, again, how to follow you. And again, if there's anything maybe that no one's even talking about, you think is a big deal in the SEC.
Yeah, no, I think that, there's obviously a lot going on when you look at, the world that we live in with recruiting going on and everything that happens. I mean, it's still waiting on a basketball roster to get solidified. And I think that will happen, but I think it's going to be when this pre-draft process gets done. That's when Miles Kelly kind of happened last year for Auburn. I think the same thing will happen this year. That will be when they try to add another big. And, I think, for them, hopefully keep Tahad Pettiford, because if you don't, then that changes everything for them as you move forward. So, but a lot going on. Football recruiting weekend, finishing up baseball SEC tournament next week. Softball opens in Tallahassee this weekend in NCAA regional. So, a ton going on. Find us at auburnundercover.com, all the social media platforms, and follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it is, at ITHE Jason.
Yeah, great stuff, man. We'll do it again next week. Thank you. Hey, Wil Gunter will be on here with us in just a second from over in Columbia, South Carolina, 107.5 The Game. Brendan, I got to ask you if, go back to that tight end position. Who, even in the NFL, who has the great tight ends? Because we've got these these edge rushers and these, you look at a young guy like LJ McCray on the defensive front at Florida. You look at every SEC school, they've got these guys that are 5 stars, and you put a tight end out there. That's a tough match. What are they even trying to do with the tight end?
No, it's anything else. It's just the play. It's the sell your play action. This is the old as the game, since they started throwing the ball. If you can have speed on the edge, size in the middle, and you can dink and dunk and pick them apart underneath, and then set up the big stretch play on the edge, or set up a great draw, or whatever, a great tight end. Obviously, I know now you've got blocking tight ends, and you've got third down tight ends, and you got there's but that all around player, you have to respect it. So if you have to tell your defensive end to freeze that tight end, it just gives them that one less second. Oh, and if you can seal off that edge, and he can turn the corner on you, then, a big tight end can have his way all day. And that could mean a lot for an offense, just in a blocking sense, and selling the fact that they're going to have to respect a big guy running down the middle that can catch the ball. Say what you want about the mass murderer, Aaron Hernandez. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the player, the guy, and I refer back to that team, obviously, because I had it, I was right there for every game on the sidelines and watch it happen. But, you can go to, like we did this the other day, a myriad of different teams from every national championship down, and see why a tight end matters and how that makes such a huge difference to an offense. So, I think you're always looking to add that component. And it's a high value position in today's modern day football.
Yeah, it is. And when it works, you look at Brock Bowers, you can call him a hybrid or whatever. I mean, look what he did as a rookie in the NFL with the Raiders. That's what everybody wants. But he's out of Napa, California. There's only so many of those. Hey, I wanted to throw out, we got some early times announced yesterday for week 1 in college football. How about this for your Saturday? Texas goes to the Shoe in Columbus. That's going to be 12 Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. And that's what they do in the Big Ten, the big noon. That advantage Texas there. Tennessee and Syracuse, same thing, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern. Alabama and Florida State going to tee it off in Tallahassee, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. LSU Clemson, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, a night game, the battle for who has the real Death Valley. And South Carolina and Virginia Tech, 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. They'll get the Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit will be doing the primetime Clemson and LSU. Brendan, there's so many storylines going on right now. And when we're in Birmingham, that pro-am, there's going to be a lot of coaches and people, a million questions asked, and Nick Saban will be there. Hey, do you want to be the commissioner? I thought about this last night, that list of the top 100 players of all time. You can tell when a young person puts this list together, but they had Herschel Walker at number 34.
Those lists are just clickbait. I really don't pay attention to that crap. It's somebody in a click farm somewhere putting that stuff together. I think this is the time of year for it. This is the time of year where we hear about all that stuff. Look, if you want to talk about, and we haven't talked about it, I know you all talked about it last night, but SEC softball tournament and NCAA seeding is going on. So we're just looking at some trending stories, which I had earlier. I don't know if you've been following any of that stuff, Rob. You've got a lot of SEC baseball developments, which is we're getting to that time of year. And, football never seems to shut down with, now the transfer portal's out, but it's always something because everyone's moving around. So it looks like we have our guest in, Dudley Dawson. Let's see where he is today. The Masters. What hole are you on, Dudley?
Yeah. Dudley, where are you today? Are you back in Heber Springs?
Yeah, I'm just the lovely place that I hang out with a lot of times. So.
Dudley, can you turn up your microphone so we can hear you better?
Yes, I'll work on that.
Make sure.
Here we go.
It always looks like that's like an easy 9-iron right there. Just, and if you got a little wind behind you, Dudley, you're might have to feather an 8 in there. So it's really like a really soft hand 8. You know what I mean? And it looks like it's going to suck right back to the edge there. So just go ahead and hit it long on the edge, and let it come on back to the hole there, partner.
Lots of times I sell that and then find the water. I can find the water on any course.
Well, that would be that is gorgeous. That your backgrounds are always spectacular. Hey, Wil Gunter is supposed to be on here with us. Something happened, I guess, over there in Columbia, South Carolina. So if he pops in for a few minutes, I'd like to talk to him. But Dudley, let's talk about the Razorbacks. Right now, this SEC baseball is hot. Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 talked about, if you thought basketball was good, it's not even close. Baseball is that much better. Jason Caldwell just said you could be 18-12 and hopefully get to host a regional.
There's a lot of things going on. I think the world's upside down right now. I mean, my Celtics are about to be put out 3-1, down 3-1. The Cardinals have won 9 games in a row. I wouldn't have suspected that they would have done that in a month, much less in 9 in a row.
Say it again. 9 in a row for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Ella Langley and Megan Maroney are feuding. I just want to get between them, hug and help work that out,
Yeah.
And then my son now is the agent for Chappelle Roan. Didn't see that one coming, but look forward to hanging out with her. She's a lovely young lady person from Missouri up the road here. But it's a weird thing going on here. And the final thing is, here we go with an Arkansas SEC baseball series that I thought would be for the SEC championship at the end of this year. I mean, it's the last regular season one. These two teams have combined to win lose 9 of their last 11 SEC series. So it doesn't have the heat that you would have thought. Arkansas is trying to continue to be that one of those top number 8 seeds, and then Tennessee obviously is trying to be one of the 16 host sites. So certainly has a lot of storylines here, but not the ones I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee baseball is just struggling. That's hard to explain. I think they've lost 4 home series. You look around Missouri, who was winless. I thought we'd have our first 0-30 team in SEC baseball that I can ever remember, but they broke our hearts. They swept Texas A&M. If that doesn't tell you how much you better be ready every time you get out on the field, on the mound, whatever. That's a perfect.
And all 3 games, I mean, swept them.
Yeah,
and that puts Texas A&M in a bind after all this good they've done here lately. It's the start and the finish that the NCAA is going to look at. They're probably going to get 13 to 14 teams in, but still, that was a stunner.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Hey, Wil Gunter, we have just a few minutes. I know you got tied up with something this morning. 107.5 The Game over in Columbia, South Carolina. Got Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net up in Fayetteville. We're talking about this crazy baseball season. By the way, there's a really, looking for 30 about South Carolina baseball that's coming out. But what's happening in Columbia with the Fighting Beamers? There's stuff everywhere you look. Like Dudley said, the world's upside down right now.
Yeah, well, with football, it's really, I think I've told you this, but it's really interesting to watch what's kind of occurring, because it feels like the maturation of a coach and of a program. Because, when Shane first came in, one thing Shane really did was they were very big on social media. They had the Office parody. They had the Full House video. They showed them playing hide and seek. They were doing all these things. And I've noticed they really toned it down a lot. It's a fun program. They still put some stuff out. But I feel like it's kind of like they're comfortable, especially Coach Beamer, Shane. He's very comfortable in his own skin now, knowing that it's his program. Kind of he's out from under the shadow of Frank Beamer a little bit. And they also know, 2 years ago after the 8-5 season, after they beat Tennessee and Clemson and lost to Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl, he knows they didn't handle success well. There was a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. They didn't handle it well. They went 5-7. I think they're trying to do it. They're trying to prep the guys, trying to kind of set a mentality of they're going to have a lot of expectations. They're going to be probably a top 15 team. They're going to have a quarterback who's going to be mentioned in the Heisman race a little bit. They're going to have a defensive end in Dylan Stewart, who's going to kind of be a national name. So it's kind of a job of, hey, do your job, stay under the radar, and let's get ready for the season, because all the great stuff that we accomplished means nothing in 2025. It just means it's the start of a new season.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the sales business. The end of the month, you made $50,000. The next day, day one, you're a zero by your name.
Right.
You got to start over. Dudley, looking at what he just said about South Carolina expectations and all. By the way, Marty Smith was on the show with us from Marty and McGee Friday morning. Fantastic, because he grew up 15 miles from Blacksburg. And I asked him if he knew where Rich Creek was, where my brother-in-law was from, and that was his big high school rival. And, he said he grew up pulling cable, and just one of his best friends is Shane Beamer playing against him. So I think it's a cool story. And, Dudley, he's talking about social media. How much access, speaking of that, do you have at Arkansas right now with the football program? Not just with basketball or anything, but just football.
I think enough. I mean, it's not overly too much, but it's probably a little bit. It's certainly a little bit less than what we had when Coach Broyles and those guys were here, and the practices were open. You could come and go to an office, and talk to a coach at any point. It's a little bit different than that in this day and age, and social media's probably done a lot of that. But it's palatable. Let's say that we can get along. We can do that. I realize the landscape is changing, both in how we do things. All the schools are getting their own things that, show a lot of the back scenes in the back and all that. And I think it's one of those things. Let me, somebody try to call here.
It's Ed McMahon.
Yeah. But I tell you what, talking about South Carolina, I have a lot of respect for Coach Beamer. I think he's grown into the role, as William was saying. When he played his first game up here as the head coach of South Carolina, I asked him a question. He didn't like it. It was because I didn't think it was a bad question, but he didn't like it, and he responded in a certain way. He called me the next Monday morning and apologized, said, "I'm just competitive. Please don't take it the wrong way. Know who you are. You've done." I thought that was big of him, and did a lot for me, think about how he's going about it. And they certainly have the potential to be really good down there.
Yeah. Will, again, just a few more minutes because we got Vince Ferrara about to be on from Knoxville. I want to get you back on next week, and I know you got a crazy schedule in the morning. What is the driving story right now, though, heading in? I saw Josh Pate's early top 20 post-spring. He's got South Carolina at number 18 right behind Georgia Tech. That means they're probably going to win, 9-10 games. What would happen if South Carolina made the college football playoff? How crazy would the upstate, the low country, and everywhere in between be in that state?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this fan base. Well, look, let's be honest. Right now, basketball was quite awful. Baseball is challenging the SEC. They're set to have the worst season they've ever had, like ever. So people are a little latched on to women's sports right now. The softball team is playing as good as they ever have, and then obviously women's basketball is the kind of the featured sport here. But to answer your question, yeah, people would love it. They need the good news. People are fired up. And look, in college football at times, when you get a quarterback like Lenore Sellers, this is your window. This is your window to get the job done. It doesn't want to be open.
Yeah.
But you look at the team that they've daunting the schedule is, but that's kind of evolved because with now 12 teams. So you kind of can't say, well, the schedule was too difficult. It's something certainly that is going to be talked about, I think, a lot, especially when we get to SEC Media Day there in July.
Yeah. Well, we got a bad connection. Let's do this again in a few days. I will call you after the show on the way to Birmingham because we couldn't hear you. But I want to follow up on what you're saying about South Carolina, okay? And I appreciate it. I know it was a crazy schedule this morning. Okay. And I'll give you a call on the way down to Birmingham. We lost him. I think sometimes the internet gremlins, Dudley, get to us. And, I do think that that when you start thinking about any program expectations, I think high expectations, Dudley, are good.
Oh, absolutely. And, if your fan base is not upset when you're losing, then you've got a bigger problem than your coaching status. Apathy is the worst thing that could happen to a sports program. That's happened here a couple of times. I wouldn't say it's here with football right now. People still care because they still gripe. And, there's I went to what they're calling the One Razorback Road Show. They had their first of 8 stops this week in Bentonville, went up there. Coach Pittman is happy about what he got in the portal, excited about, his coaching staff, being able to keep the coordinators and move, in a certain direction. But let's all, it's a big year for them. The buyout, as I've said, goes down this year, and so there'll be, fans focusing on that as much as they do on wins. And it's an unbelievable schedule. When Notre Dame's coming to your place, Memphis, you go, you play them. You play Arkansas State, which hadn't happened. And then you roll into the SEC schedule slate. And, it's always tough. It's, there are easier schedules to manage than this, but, this is what it is.
Can you confirm, maybe you can deny it, the rumors that Life Cereal is the new sponsor of Butch Thompson Life Champions? I tell you what, he's getting Arkansas State, like John Brady said, he's getting some of these rice farmers and cotton farmers and farmers in the Delta excited about Arkansas State basketball.
Having grown up over in Northeast Arkansas, rice would be a thing that you definitely would want to sponsor you. But he's done a really good job over there, and it's seems like a good fit for him.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's the second game of the year for Arkansas. It's not the season opener. It's going to be in Little Rock. There's going to be a lot of talk leading up to that, if that's going to be one of the last games in Little Rock or the last game in Little Rock for a while. I hope it's not. As I said, growing up in Northeast Arkansas, I enjoyed going there.
Yeah.
And so I still enjoy going there, and I hope that they continue to play there. But I know that's not the opinion of a lot of folks.
Well, it will be fun to watch because, Audrey, my wife, that's where she went and went to school. And a lot of Memphis people go there. Great college of agriculture. And if you like duck hunting, you will make the greatest connections in the history of connections. Vince Ferrara, sports animal in Knoxville, folks. Check him out, 99.1 The Sports Animal. Take some time today and look at his body of work that he does. Him, Jimmy Himes, Josh Ward, what they do covering the Tennessee Vols. And, he also used to cover Alabama when he lived in Tuscaloosa. But it's great work. And Vince, I'm telling you, your analysis and your breakdowns and the way you're organized, you need to be teaching a class in the School of Journalism. I had some friends, guys, when we were freshmen in college. Bubba Halliday, my intern's dad, had a class that Lindsey Nelson taught. How cool would that have been, man? Yeah. Lindsey Nelson, Notre Dame at the 42-yard line. It's a pitch out from O'Malley to Fitzgerald to O'Reilly, and here come the Irish. How you doing? I'm wound up.
I am. No, you're always wound up, but that's the standard of sideline sports. So love it. Good to be on with you and Dudley. Dudley, we got a little bit of baseball to talk about as the Big Orange is coming to Arkansas to take on those always hospitable Arkansas Razorbacks.
I was just telling him, 9 of the last. I expected this to be for the SEC championship, and instead 9 of the last 11 series these two teams have combined to lose. Did not see that coming. Both have something to play for this weekend. Just like 2 weeks ago when Texas came here, which is the older fan base's rival.
Yeah.
This is the newer fan base's rival with Tennessee. I look forward to seeing Coach V, and it should be fun. And Thursday night, I always get those confused with it. Thursday night should be a fabulous pitching matchup with Liam Doyle and Zach Root, 2 of the best in the SEC this year. And then it's just going to be softball scores probably the next 2 days.
Right, because there's been inconsistencies in terms of pitching. I know for Tennessee that has been the case, and these two teams in some ways have kind of mirrored each other in some moments. Like there was one weekend where both won on Friday. Then you had a high scoring loss in game 2, and then just sort of scraping by and losing in close fashion in game 3. So both had a skid at the same time that was really stunning, honestly. So yeah, there are definitely comparisons between the two. Arkansas, I think, has done a better job of figuring things out as of late than Tennessee has. Tennessee has been in 6 straight rubber match series, and they've lost 5 of their last 6, including 4 straight series at home. Think about that. Yeah. Tennessee lost 4 total games at home last year. They've lost 4 straight SEC home series. It's just remarkable. And Tony Vitello's brought this up. I mean, he's always, encouraging the fans and complimenting the fans. But there's been times where they've gone up against other sports, basketball during the overlap or spring game or whatever. And then the weather has really been a factor a lot recently. And that, you guys know, you get a weather delay, hour, 2, 30 minutes, whatever. A lot of your fans are not coming back, are not waiting around, so if it's an automatic 30 minutes, a lot of people are like, I'm out of here, especially on a weeknight. But they haven't had that perfect storm of the team is playing great, the opponent, all of the factors, the weather, everything coming into play, like they've had so much through the last few years under Coach Vitello. It's been sort of choppy and awkward, and then their play has been a part of the equation too. So just haven't been able to fully take advantage of the home field, and they've actually played better on the road. So the one team that has eluded Tony Vitello in terms of a series win is Arkansas. So they'll obviously, as you guys know, be plenty ready for the Vols.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going to be interesting to me is when you try to look at this series analytically. Tennessee does not throw out runners, and Arkansas does not steal bases. Who's going to win that battle this weekend? Does Arkansas take off and run more because, Tennessee hasn't been able to throw them out, or do they just sit and wait around and try to go from first to third and all that?
It's a good point, Dudley. I'll tell you what I think we've seen. We've seen teams, it was earlier in the year, forget which series, but we've seen teams that have not run much going into the series with Tennessee start running. And here's the day, game 2 with Marcus Phillips is where opponents are picking on him. Here's some numbers for you. Tennessee has allowed 101 stolen bases this year. I don't think they didn't give up one. So yeah, it was still 101. They gave up 56 all of last year in 73 games. So there's that. On top of that, Marcus Phillips has allowed 36 stolen bases against him when he's been on the mound. Tennessee did not have a single pitcher last year allow more than 9. No one had more than 9, and one of them was Drew Beam, who pitched 102 stinking innings, and he's allowed 36 this year. So Tony Vitello was very frank in the post game last weekend after this.
Wait, what? What?
Yeah, I know.
That's part of him. That's part of him I love.
You're right.
Yeah.
He said if that aspect doesn't get better, and if the performance doesn't get better, he's not going to pitch, referring to Marcus Phillips. So that's pretty strong for him. So we'll see. When they announce the pitching probables for this weekend, it could very well, I would not be surprised. John Wilkerson and I were just talking about this. It would not be surprised if it's Liam Doyle and then TBD for those last 2 games, and just kind of see how it goes, and maybe a different role for Phillips, who's been the game 2 starter all season. But he just doesn't have the same kind. Nobody else that has started has either been healthy, has been experienced enough, or had that dog warrior mentality that Doyle brings you in game 1. Just haven't had enough of that this year with the youth on the staff.
Yeah, we have a press conference with Coach Van Horn at 10:30. I suspect that he'll announce that Zach Root's pitching on Thursday, and that Gage Wood will pitch on Friday, and then they'll bring in Aiden Jimenez and Gabe Gackle, which is something they've been doing lately, and then TBD, I'm sure, will be the announced starter for Saturday, which is interesting because, last year was Hagen Smith and TBD,
Right.
Pretty much the whole year. The one thing about the Saturday game is that Arkansas is finally getting a couple of its relievers back. They may go two innings. It may be a Tampa Bay type game pitching wise in that last game for them. And I know that it's, we have the prognosticators and the mocks and all that. 2 out of 3 for Arkansas would, I think, solidify them as a number 8 national seed. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, that hadn't worked for them the past 2 years. But you'd rather do that than take a trip to Oklahoma State or North Carolina or wherever you would have to down the line.
Let me say something real quick. Audrey gave me this. Teaching is a work of heart, and that's Teacher Appreciation Week. So she went out and she bought Mexican Cokes in the glass bottles, put M&Ms and packages together for the people that work with her at her clinic over in Parkin, Arkansas. Said, "You're the real thing." Said,
I appreciate teachers so much that my late wife was a teacher and my current wife is a teacher. So, and they could, and my current wife continues to try to teach me how to use utensils while eating and all those kind of stuff. So,
well, I mean, and it is, and teaching on any level, coaches, I'm going to tell you, I learned working seriously, our executive producer, Brendan, I mean, focus, Rob, stay on focus, time, everything like that. We can't thank teachers enough, especially the ones that we know. So anyway, teaching is a work of art. I got to ask both of y'all, and you talk about Tony Vitello. I like how frank he is. I like people that are honest and show their emotions. I mean, and I don't know. Dudley, you know him. Vince, you know Tony Vitello. I don't know him, but I know people that interact with him in Knoxville, and they all like him. He's just super competitive. I'm curious, is there a problem with the catcher? What is it? 56 all of last year in 73 games and a national championship, and already 101 or 102 this year. What do you put your finger on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a couple things. One, Cal Stark was fantastic, not only throwing out runners, especially in the second half of last year, but with the back picks. And that would keep guys closer to first base because they would get picked off. And they don't have that element this year. Cannon Peebles has a good arm. He's a good defender, but Cal Stark was a great defender at catcher. And, and then also some guys have been, on their staff a little bit slower to the plate. And Phillips hasn't been paying as much attention. And he's very slow to home plate as well. So a lot of the numbers are picking on him, but it's really been against a number of other guys too that are a little bit slower to the plate, and they just don't have the elite arm and threat to pick guys off that they did a year ago.
And Rob, I know that people, at every level they boo when they throw to first base, but that's so important to keep a runner close. The difference between 1.8 and 2.0, getting the ball down to second is immense. It doesn't sound like it, but it is. Yes. And how many, stolen bases have we seen this year that have been bang at the bag, and it was because they were a step closer or a step further away.
And here's another little thing. I don't know that really a lot of people around here have talked about it. Blake Burke made himself into an elite defender at first. He was awesome at those snap tags that would really sell it to the umpires. And Andrew Fisher is not a natural first baseman. He's a third baseman. I think under the circumstances of his first year, he's done a pretty good job. But, man, you can steal some of those. You can steal some outs, some pickoffs when you have a defender with quick hands that can apply that tag really fast. So that's a little bit of a part of it. So it's all things. It's guys, maybe they've moved their middle infielders a lot. So maybe guys either not holding on to the ball or maybe late to get to the bag. It's just kind of been a number of things contributing to that.
And, 1.5 pop time from catcher to second is considered to be really, really good. And Dudley, you're right. You wonder how many times a pitcher is trying to pick the guy off at first and an errant throw. I mean, I grew up just WGN Chicago watching the Cubs. Pitcher's trying to throw to first and it's up in the stands. It's just Cubs lose again. But that's part of baseball. And it's such a mental game, isn't it? I mean, it just to me, it's
Arkansas
everything.
may have lost last weekend at LSU on that Friday night game anyway.
Yeah.
But there was a called third strike that got past Ryder Helfrich. He had to chase the ball down. The LSU runner rounded third, decided to try to pick him off, threw it high. The guy took off, scored the run, and that set the tone for the whole weekend. It would be a lot different mentality, I think, going into this weekend. They'd feel much more secure if they'd have won that Friday night game, and then they'd probably gone on and obviously won the series if things had played itself out. But it's just, I mean, there's so many little things in baseball that just are overlooked by casual fans that lead to winning and lead to losing. And it can be such a little bitty thing like not catching a third strike.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is always the little things that'll eat you up. Vince, switching over to football, we don't know what's going to happen with, the post Nico Iamaleava. He's at UCLA now. Tennessee's decided to move on. Arkansas going to see if they can get something back from his brother Madden. But I want to ask you about something you said last week, Aguilar. He's good with the short and intermediate throw. That wasn't really the strength of slinging Joe Milton out of Pahokee, Florida from the muck. He could throw it a country mile, but that short and intermediate pass, that's what is tough for a lot of quarterbacks. Hearing that tells me Tennessee may be a little better on offense if he can do that and do enough with the long ball, because Ellis Johnson said last year, he's right. The deep ball for Tennessee, their success is predicated on that. You throw a few of those in a game, this could be an upgrade, even though you don't think it is. I'm thinking it is.
Yeah, and Coach Johnson is absolutely right. This offense is about the deep ball going vertical and then the run game.
Yeah.
And those two are connected in a lot of ways. Here's some numbers for you. And by the way, you mentioned the short to intermediate throws that I referenced last week. That was Josh Heupel talking about Joey Aguilar, that he was accurate and on time in those short to intermediate throws. And doing some more digging on Joey Aguilar, his numbers, and watching him at App State, he threw the ball over the middle of the field more than what we've seen recent Tennessee quarterbacks in Nico and Joe Milton. They wouldn't have as many throws. He has more attempts in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
That tells me, one, that he can make the throws, two, that he's willing to. And I think some of what we've seen the last two starting quarterbacks for Tennessee is kind of being risk averse. And at times, too, they've dialed things back and relied on the run game when they didn't want to turn the ball over. And, oh, by the way, your defense is playing at a really high level. But I think with Aguilar, it might open up the middle of the field more for you. And if you can be on time, can give you the run after catch, which this team has not had enough of since back in the Jalen Hyatt days and with Hendon Hooker back in 2022. Here's some numbers for you to tell you how much the deep ball has gone away since 2022 with this offense. Hendon Hooker in throws 20 or more. Hooker in 2022 was 30 of 68, 44%, 13 touchdowns, just one interception, 1,219 yards. I mean, that is crazy efficient, and that is a threat that is always there. 44%, that's really good. Joe Milton in 2023, it drops to 18 of 61, 30%, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, down to 753 yards. Nico last year, 16 of 50, 32%, just 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, just 630 yards. 20 or more yards. They only had 16 completions. That's from Nico, and it doesn't count garbage time with other quarterbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
That's half of your 20 or more throws basically gone from what you were able to do in 2022. So that is big production that's dipped, and that's why their tempo was down. That's why they weren't able to run away from opponents. So I studied Joey Aguilar and his numbers over 2 years. 1 year, 29 of 81, another year, 28 of 77, both 36%. So it's kind of in between where Hooker was and where Nico and Milton were. The touchdowns were up, averaged 10 per year. The interceptions, though, were up 2. 1 year 2, last year 6, and both of them at about 1,000 yards. So you're getting more. You're getting more yards and touchdowns. You're getting more interceptions. You're getting more attempts. That's at App State. Will Tennessee be willing to give up some interceptions if Aguilar doesn't clean that up to be able to get the deep ball threat that they used to have?
Yeah, I love that risk averse. I love that take from Vince. The one of the biggest things with Taylor Green last year, he had a very good year in some aspects, but his interceptions were much like a turnover in basketball. They led to points, and you cannot have that. You've got to throw it to your guy, or it's got to be where nobody can catch it. And I'm sure that after having another year to work with Bobby Petrino, that the risk adverse thing is going to be a little bit easier. I think they've signed 27 wide receivers, is what it seems like during the portal. They lost Andrew Armstrong, who signed a free agent contract, Isaac Tesla, who went to the Detroit Lions and is in a good spot there. But they had to go get some, and it always is about turnovers, especially in the passing game, because you just can't give up 6 points by throwing it to the wrong place and then allowing that team to run it all the way down and back and put your defense in bad position. And another thing that I think that the risk averse is such a good thing. Can you trust your guy to throw it to hit your guys?
Yeah. Hey, guys, we're about to wrap up here. Close out, Vince, in 30 seconds or so. And same thing with you, Dudley, how they can follow you, but also any stories that need to be followed with Tennessee in your case, Vince.
Yeah, we had Danny White on with us. He joins us every other week on the show, and we talked about the SEC potentially going to 9 conference games. With those stories being out there, he didn't want to commit to one way or the other. He said it depends on what else is connected with that. I think it's 16-team playoff, which he is for expansion. And then I think it's automatic qualifying as well, automatic bids, I should say, with the SEC. I think they'll go to 9 if those things come with it. He didn't say that, but that's just my opinion. You can follow me on all the socials, Vince Sports, VINCE Sports, and you can hear that interview with Danny White, all of our interviews and podcasts at 991thesportsanimal.com.
Thank you so much, man, Vince. Awesome. We'll see you next week. Dudley, same thing.
You mentioned Madden. We had an opportunity to talk to Hunter Yurchek, the director of athletics here, Monday, and he was asked a question about Madden and where that's at. He said basically that the collective and Tom Mars and them were working to get a settlement instead of going to court, which would be best for everybody, I think. So, we'll see how it plays itself out. The other thing up here, obviously, Arkansas's baseball team gets a lot of publicity. Arkansas softball team tied its highest national seed ever, number 4. They play here. They play here this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I think it's a good field for them. I think they've got a great opportunity to get to the Women's College World Series. But it's funny, Oklahoma State, which has happened to be to the last 5 Women's College World Series, is another team that's here. So that's going to be fun. We always have fun around here with Arkansas and Oklahoma State, no matter what the sport.
You're not kidding. Great stuff, Dudley, as always. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. For executive producer Brendan Martin, great show as always. Thanks everybody for watching. Share the show. Mother Teresa said it best. We all can do something. We don't have to do everything. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Safe travels, everybody. Watch this channel. Watch the Buddy Martin Show tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, have a great day.